हेलो फ्रेंड्स, गुड इवनिंग लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन। आज फिर एक और हमारे साथ स्पेशल फोर्सेस के मेंबर हैं जिन्होंने करीब 7 साल अपनी प्राइम यूथ के पैरा स्पेशल फोर्सेस में दिए और उसके बाद ही इज हेल्पिंग many startups and business communities. So before I take much of a time, let me introduce his captain, Koka Vineet. Right now, he's based out of India and joining us to discuss his life story. So, Vineet, welcome to the show. We call it a Win Life Like a Warrior. And you are a true warrior in parasf. Uh, uh, Even the army also, you have done wonders, and thereafter in the civil life. So, let's talk about you. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, sir. Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to firstly meet a veteran and a senior like you, and through you also connect to the other audience. So just to give a background about myself, I'm Vineet Koka. I retired from the 7 Para SF. As part of my army, tenure, served 7 years with 2 infantry battalions. One is the Para SF battalion, 7 Para, and second is the 5 Assam, which is known as the 5th Battalion, the Assam Regiment. So post 7 years, I left army on grounds of some medical injury, and I went on a disability pension because I'd hurt my knees in a para jump. And after 7 years in the army, then I did a executive MBA from IIM Indore, and posted I've been working with some big medium and startup companies for the last 15 odd years. I started my innings with Tech Mahindra, which was that time known as Satyam Computers. And then I worked for another startup, which mainly was focusing on Latin America as a market and North Americas. And then I came back to India, did my own startup known as Creative Pixels, moved to Thailand in 2014. So past 7 to 8 years, I've been there. There I did a startup known as Mentor Systems. And right now, I work with a very well-known startup in India, which is known as Disprz. I work as Vice President Sales and Marketing for Southeast Asia for this company. And was the first person who started the Southeast Asia operations. And I mainly manage around 5 countries in this region, like Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and others. So it's been a pretty exciting journey. So would love to share my experiences and answer your questions. Yeah, good, thanks.
Good. Very nice. Very nice. It's a wonderful, very enriching and very inspiring journey so far. So to start with, Vineet, you see, viewers would like to know that as a childhood journey, and then how you finally landed up in the army, and that too in the para. So let's firstly that how you were really inclined right from the beginning to join army.
Yeah, right. So for me, joining army was a no-brainer because my father and mother both retired as colonels from the army. My father was from EME. He retired as a colonel. His name was Colonel Ratnam. And my mother also was a doctor in the AMC. She retired as Colonel Sureka. So in fact, for me, it was the other way. My parents were saying that throughout our life, we have served in the army and you have seen enough of army. Why don't you do something outside? Okay. like do an MBA, work for some big company, do a MCA, work in the IT side. So, and I was pretty much okay with that. So in my 12th grade, I never gave a NDA examination. So because my inclination was always to do something outside, because, both my parents wanted me to do that. But in 1998 was the time my mother was posted as commanding officer in MH Belgaum. And that was the time which actually I got very motivated to join army when I was doing my graduation, mainly because of 3 things. One was, there was a Kargil war going on that time. And that really inspired me that where I saw that, so many battalions are being moved to, places like Dras, Kargil, and, other parts of J&K along the line of control. And I actually saw some officers going back and joining their battalions from Belgaum, who were posted in the infantry school. So that really fascinated me, that, that whole troop movement and the whole country charged up, right? Second was, I think so, being in Belgaum, I came to know a lot about, especially Commando wing, where I met a lot of young officers who were instructors there. And also I used to meet a lot of young officers who used to come for their Commando course. So I kind of had that fascination towards infantry, really, which, started interesting me. And then it was, third was, I kind of got very, very much interested in the special forces, where, of course, it is the elite, it is the prime of the Indian Army. The best of the best are in special forces. And wearing that maroon beret, the sign of Balidan, is an honor and a privilege. So these were the three things which really fascinated me. And I quickly changed my mind that I would like to follow on footsteps of my family. And I started preparing for the army. That's how I joined the army. Yeah.
Okay. That's very nice. And the viewers, let me tell you, see, the Belgaum is a place where infantry के commandos तैयार किए जाते हैं. So by seeing those commandos with a ball and running 50 kilometers and so every day, any youth will get inspired. And that is what happened with Vineet as well. Fantastic, Vineet. I think you rightly said it is other way around, because yesterday I interviewed another para officer. He wanted to become an IT officer. Okay. But to fulfill his parent desire, he joined para, or he joined army, in fact. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So Vineet, after that, once you got inspired, you might have gone through your either CTS. And how was the journey thereafter in the academies or your education?
All right. So of course, joining the army was an interesting journey. So I never took army very lightly. So my preparations were very well tuned. I prepared for the entrance examination almost for 1 year. I started preparing for SSB about 6 months back. 6 months before I had to go for a SSB. Took also a formal coaching in Delhi, all the way from Belgaum. Went to Delhi. There was a gentleman, Colonel Kansi, and they used to run a very good academy known as Balnoi Academy. Took the SSB coaching there, and at a very young age, I was not even 20 when I cleared my SSB. So it was a great feeling to join the army. And then, of course, when I went to the academy, I used to look at army from a very different side. Being the privileged one, like always a commanding officer's son. So I used to, feel that army is not that tough. Never realized that once I reached academy, it was totally different. So the same captains with whom I used to, hang out in parties, crack some jokes, I was literally shit scared of seeing them anywhere in front of me or even in 1 kilometer radius. And the same JCO Saabs, Havaldar Ustads, whom, I used to take very easily as an army kid. I was really very dreadful of them. I used to be literally petrified seeing them, because that they could give you instructor, they could give you extra drills, they could give you a lot of punishments. So academy was very tough for me, because that change of being a gentleman cadet, taking the pressure of seniors, really understanding army as a insider was a big eye opener for me. Yeah.
And how was the experience in the SSB? Anything would you like to share?
So SSB experience was very good. I think so. I was very natural in my SSB of why I wanted to join army. Exactly the introduction which I gave you was the true reason why I wanted to join army. And I told my interviewing officer also that I never wanted to join army. I never even tried for tried to attempt for an NDA. But suddenly all these things changed my perspective towards army. And second, as I told you, I went through a lot of preparation, right? So I knew what is right, what's wrong. And also I feel that SSB is a very practical thing. I mean, you need to be a very natural person, showing your qualities as a team player, a positive person, a person who can, be calm and organized in difficult situations. So I just followed that. I didn't focus much on, a lot of people focus a lot on OLQs, that, there are officer like qualities. Till now, it's a big question mark in front of me, that how can you really, base your complete personality just, or map it to certain OLQs, and really think that because of OLQs I'll become an army officer, or I'll get through SSB or not. So I went more natural. So it was pretty good for me. I really enjoyed my experience, and I think so I was also very lucky that I got through in my first attempt. Yeah, because there were a lot of good guys with me who couldn't get through. So I consider myself very lucky and pretty honorable that I made it in my first attempt. Yeah.
Vineet, you rightly said that the mool mantra of SSB, what I have also deciphered, that the way you said, I also made it in the first attempt only. So you, and being natural, what you are, because you can't hide.
Right.
You can't hide what you are exactly. So if you remain that, that carries your weight, and that makes you successful. And मेरे से जब कोई पूछता है ना कि कैसे तैयारी करना है, आई रिमेम्बर कि मैंने जब किसी से पूछा था, जब मैं गया था वे बैक इन 85 और सो, तो उसने मुझे एक बड़ी सिंपल सी चीज बताई थी, एंड आई वुड लाइक टू शेयर हियर बिकॉज ये डिस्कशन आया है. उसने बोला, साहब यू को लाइक ए टॉर्च का, जैसे खोखा होता है ना टॉर्च का, यू को लाइक दैट. सेल तो वो एकेडमी में डालते हैं,
राइट.
अफसर लाइक तो दे मेक यू इन द एकेडमी.
Right.
What you should be means you should be ready to adapt those qualities.
You're right, exactly sir, and it has not changed. You're very senior to me. जैसे अभी भी ना काफी लोग सोचते हैं कि अगर हम ज्यादा जोश दिखाएं, और अगर हम ज्यादा बड़ी बड़ी बातें करें, या हम दिखाएं जैसे हम बहुत बड़े देशभक्त या पेट्रियोटिक पर्सन है, तो आर्मी तो आपको सेलेक्ट कर लेगा. I think so, people should, or candidates should understand that army is looking for mainly three things. One, you should be natural, right? Second, you should be positive, because you are always in very difficult circumstances, managing difficult things, field areas. So there you need to be positive. And third is, you need to be a very well organized and balanced person, because if you are not organized and balanced at such a young age, like at the age of 20, I was managing 150 people directly, or 120 people directly or indirectly reporting to me, right? At the age of 22, when I was adjutant, almost I was managing 800 people of a special forces battalion. So these are the three qualities. Yeah, army, you have to be a team player.
Yes.
You have to be honest. You have to be somebody who follows instructions or orders from superiors. Those are natural things. You cannot survive by being not having those qualities. So I think it's a very simple process which SSB has. People make it more complicated.
You are true. So after you reached academy, any beautiful experience or the worst experience you would like to share?
Yeah, for me, see, I always say to everyone, right, that for me, my academy was the toughest training I had. So a lot of people say, we love academy, we miss those days. I'll be very honest in saying that, okay, I love academy, but I never miss those days. Because it was an absolute, tough nutcracker for me. And it's the toughest training I've gone through. I'm being very honest. More tougher than, I think so, the Commando course, more tougher than the para provision, and even more tougher than other courses I've done, like high altitude warfare school 4 courses, like mountain commando, winter warfare, or even the even the deep sea diving course with Marcos. I think so, Army, academy was really tough because of 3-4 reasons. One is, it is back-to-back packed schedule. That is one. And second, you are a graduate. You are coming there as a graduate, right? You have done your graduation, eating nice nice strawberry vanilla ice creams, or some people who are spoiled, maybe drinking some good beer, enjoying life, driving your bikes and cars, and suddenly you are put through a reverse gear where mentally and physically you need to be taken to another level within 1 year. So it's a very tough transition. And third is it's you don't have the luxuries of like eating food outside, ordering something from outside. You, on top of that, you have the senior course, who is ready to ragdo you in their extra time. So I had a very tough time in academy. I joined the army through OTA, Officers Training Academy. So it's a very, very, very intense 10 months where suddenly from a nobody, they try to make you somebody, and then an army officer. Like the first term is somebody, second term is the army officer, and everything happens in a very compressed and packed environment. And physically, it's very tough for the body to really adapt and change so fast. And second, mentally, the seniors are always on top of you, giving you extra punishments, sleepless nights, those dirty bathrooms, shortage of water, that heat of Chennai, where, running those 30-kilometer, 40-kilometer, 20-kilometer race backs, whether it was the BPT, I think it was one of the toughest things. And I really remember, like, we had a senior who was our SEO. I would not name him. He used to ensure that every day night after 11 o'clock to morning 3 o'clock, he also wakes up and somehow, ensures that we all are awake. And Ragdo was like crazy. So the junior term was pretty intense and crazy. So I think there are only three things I remember about my academy days. One was dreading the captains, the JCO Saabs, the Havaldar Ustads and my seniors. Second, somehow ensuring that I get good food. I'm able to eat my 3 meals. And third, praying that someday I get to also enjoy the luxuries. And how do I define luxuries? Was a samosa was a luxury. A bottle of Pepsi or a can of Coke was luxury. And if you get something like outside biryani to eat, that was considered like, like winning a lottery, right? So that is my definition of academy. Very, very tough. It was, yeah.
True. And in fact, Vineet, you are the second officer from Para who said that academy is tougher than the even probation. And right. Probation as well as other courses of commando and other things. And how I can relate it is that the moment you go from academy and the moment you join the unit, you suddenly find your weight increases by 4 to 5 kg straight away. So that defines how much is the difference between the two lives.
And mainly, sir, people don't understand the science. The main reason is from a college boy who is totally pampered, who is having a very healthy or unhealthy lifestyle. I told you, right?
Yes.
Suddenly, within a period of 1 year, you are made to change completely, whether it is physically, whether it is mentally. Third is your personality. Fourth is, the learning of the organization, understanding ethos. So it's a very big transition to have over, within 1 year. And especially physically, making you go from that college boy to a standard where, after academy, you can directly go for a commando course is a very steep curve. That's why academy.
Yes, no doubt. So Vineet, after you passed out from academy, how did it happen that you happened to go to the Para or rather opt for the Para? How was that experience? मतलब वो कैसे आगे बढ़ी जिंदगी पैरा में पहुंचने की?
नहीं, वो तो बहुत ही funny story है मेरी. मैं तो starting से, I joined army because I liked infantry, right? I wanted to join infantry. And second was, obviously Para was a big fascination, but I had some question marks on myself, because people used to say that Para is like joining Parachute Regiment is like a nightmare. It's like impossible. You need to be physically very, very strong. mentally you need to be at another level, right? So firstly, at our time, even to opt for para was like a very gutsy decision.
Yes, yes.
If you ever said, I'm planning to join the Parachute Regiment, there were only two questions people used to ask or say. One was, yaar pagal hai kya? Para join kya? Second was, yaar bahut mushkil hai yaar, soch le, karna hai ki nahi. But from the academy, when I opted for paras, right, what happened was there are lesser seats of para and there were more optees.
Yes.
So that's where I opted for para. Then my second choice was guards, and my third choice was the Punjab regiment. And I didn't get any of those because they say no, beggars are not choosers. And it's the president of India who commissions you. You have no option. And there are so many things like quality check, other check. So one of my close friends who eventually turned out to be my battalion officer and my course mate, that is Nirmit Thakur, Captain Nirmit Thakur. He opted for para.
Okay.
He was, I think so, 5th in merit, and I was, I think so, 14th in merit. So the para seat went to him. The other seat went to the last block.
Oh.
So, and there was another gentleman. His name was Punya. He also opted for para, and he was also ahead of me in merit. So both of them got para. I got 5 Assam, and the seats went somewhere, like on the last block. That's how I didn't get paras from academy. Okay. So then it was a long journey for me and a very tough journey because first I went to 5 Assam, and in 5 Assam, I spent like 1.5, 2 years, became a captain. And from there, when I decided that desire was still there, and I used to always abuse my course mate Nirmit Thakur, right? He said, Thakur, yaar, tere wajah se main casualty ho gaya, yaar. So finally, after 2 years, I had done my commandos. I got an instructor grading in commandos. I had done my horse with Nirmit. I'd got an instructor grading there. So Nirmit was, I think, so closely watching me. Okay. And I think so he had that guilt feeling also because of him. I didn't get paras. So after my 2 years when I was the captain, he motivated me. He said, you wanted to join paras. This is the time. You should join. And, of course, there is shortage of army officers everywhere. So my battalion, my commanding officer, I used to respect him a lot. I mean, I still adore him. His name was Colonel Kalyan. He was dead against me joining the Parachute Regiment for the right reasons. I was at that time. So I almost, went against his wish and opted for paras. And then my provision came. And by luck, I got 7 para only, where Nirmit was there. So it was like we were 2 course mates, 2 unit officers from, the 74 corps. And that's how I joined para. So one of the main reasons for me not joining paras from academy was Nirmit. One of the reasons for me to join para after I became captain was Nirmit. Yeah.
What a wonderful thing. And in fact, to suggest you to speak to you is also Nirmit who suggested me.
Yeah. We are like brothers in arms who keep, who are always together. Yeah, because we are also course mates. Yeah.
He said you get Vineet and he's a wonderful guy. I said there is no doubt I'll get him.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
Or another thing which you mentioned about that casualty, na? Academy में invariably 50% casualty होता ही होता है.
100% वो तो होता ही है.
उसमें कोई शक नहीं. आप
कुछ casualty means not that you got injured. Casualty means you have opted for something for audience. Like you opted for Punjab, but you get Maratha. You opted for some other regiment, you get something else. Because merit is not the deciding factor. Na? This is in the civil street, when you're working with companies, you can say, I have done well, so I deserve this. Army mein aisa nahi hai na, quality check hai. Bolega, yaar, you have done well, that's why you need to go to the battalion which is not doing well. Bring that battalion up.
That reminds me, even one more incident with me, which happened to me also. I was also casualty. Okay. I was a communication engineer. There was another, he retired as a brigadier Joshi, and he was an electronic engineer. हम दोनों का भोपाल में SSB में दोनों का साथ-साथ सिलेक्शन हुआ. एंड हम शाम को जब खत्म हो जाता था जो GTO वीडियो का काम, तो we used to walk and around and we used to discuss a lot कि कौन क्या join करे. So he always wanted to join communication signal, and I always wanted to join EM.
Okay.
Academy, we opted like that. He got EME and I got signals. ठीक है.
That's what happens, yeah.
That's what happened. So, Vineet, but by now you've already got selected for the para provision. So, how was the experience in the para provision? That is another wonderful life.
Sir, para provision is a very different experience, right? So again, there is a saying in Parachute Regiment, Special Forces, that you don't need to be physically fit, you need to be mentally very fit and strong.
Very tough.
Yeah, you don't need to be physically tough, or you need to be mentally very tough. I think that saying is very true in Parachute Regiment, because एक चीज है जो physically fit नहीं है या strong नहीं है, वो तो Parachute Regiment का provision कर ही नहीं सकता, right? You have to be like a super fit guy of the Indian Army. That means you have to be the best of best in terms of fitness in Indian Army. Now what happens in para provision is, once you are there, right, you see that that's a very different world. Now, for example, in academy, it's very tough because there is a very steep curve between your transition of your physical and mental state, right? From a civilian to becoming an army officer. Commandos is very tough because it's a compact time packed course where within 42 days or 35 days you don't get time to sleep. You need to go through certain routine exercises, runs, activities, tests, but you know what you're going through in commandos, and you know what are the standards. Like in commandos, in academy, or in commando course, you know that I need to do my BPT in 25 minutes. I need to do my rock climbing like this. I need to pass my demolition exam. I need to do my 30 kilometer in so-and-so time. I need to do my 40 in so-and-so time. So everything is as per a schedule. Everything is managed well in terms of a routine course, and you know how to prepare for it. Now, when you come to paras, right, there is no schedule. They reverse your schedule. That means at daytime, when you have to do your tests, you have to sleep, you have to do certain, at daytime, you have to do your tests, you have to, do your exercises, you have to attend classes, all that happens at night. At night, when you have to sleep, that you are sleeping at daytime. So they keep changing the schedule in a very intense way. Second is, every parachute battalion has their own provision. So there is no fixed formula that provision ऐसे होता है battalion में. मर्जी है. हर battalion का provision अलग होता है, उनके standards अलग है, और हर battalion अपना provision भी change कर देती है 2-3 साल में ना. So एक तो you are going through a provision of a long provision of 6 months where you don't know what is the schedule. You don't know whether day is day, night is night, day can be night, night can be day. Second is, there is nothing like a routine. You don't know when what are the standards. Like if BPT standard is 25 minutes with your battle load and your, with your AK-47, here in para provision, they expect you to do in 20 to 21 minutes. So everything in terms of your tests and physical endurance is to the next level. Like in paras, you do 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers, 60 kilometers, and finally 120 kilometers with battle load. So the second is fitness is at another level. And the last thing is you're doing it all alone. Especially the officer course or the officer provision happens almost all alone. Or there are 2-3 officers जिसमें पक्का 1-2 तो पहले ही give up कर देते हैं कि भाई हमें नहीं बनना पैरा commando and all, हमें नहीं join करना पैरा. So you are almost left all alone, complete duration of 3 to 5 months. So there is nobody who is motivating you, nobody who is supporting you. The whole battalion is looking at you as if you're not good enough to join us. That's why slowly, physically, mentally, it becomes very exhausting for you, where you start doubting your own capabilities. You start thinking ki whether this is doable, whether I'm doing it right. If I'm doing it right, whether they will select me. So it's a very very difficult thing to clear your provision, because one, there is no schedule or there is no standard. Second, everything becomes ulta fulta, and your physical fitness is tested at another level. I mean, commandos and all is also way behind. And third is you're doing it all alone. So you have to be self-motivated. You have to be self-engaged. You have to be highly passionate. Yeah, I have to clear this provision and I have to join Parachute Regiment. वो लोग कभी नहीं बोलते कि यार आप you're not selected. You yourself say somewhere in between, यार मेरे को नहीं करना है. And that's what they want to. That's what they want to listen to you. That they want to listen one line. I don't want to do it, or I cannot do it, and they'll say, okay, then go back. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great. So and that is true also, because they just want to see the perseverance. How much is the emotional and mental toughness you have got? That is what is.
So if you want to join the Parachute Regiment, one thing I'll tell you, that if you are not physically the best of the best, that means if you are not physically fit, then better don't join it. Don't be in a fool's paradise कि मैं वहां जाके physically fit हो जाऊंगा. वहां कोई fit नहीं हो सकते आप. They need somebody who is physically not fit, who is the best. And second is, if you are thinking that they are there welcoming you, कि wow, like I was a captain. They are not saying, all right, Captain Saab, thank you for joining us. Oh, you are instructor grading in commandos. You're instructor grading in mountain warfare, winter warfare. Oh, you're such a great officer, and we'll give you a red carpet treatment. No, you're absolutely nothing for them. So the provision, the Parachute Regiment provision, and the complete mindset, the angle of physical toughness, mental fitness is another level. So if you really feel that you're up to it, I would say you should opt for Parachute Regiment. And if you're thinking that वहां जाके मैं कर लूंगा ना, वहां जाके कुछ नहीं होगा. You have to be really good physically to run those 120 kilometers, 60 kilometer runs. वहां जाके अचानक you cannot say I'll become a He-Man or a Superman. Yeah.
I agree. और वहां जब जाते हैं ना, शुरू में क्या है, रिसेप्शन कैसे रहता है?
रिसेप्शन नहीं, हर किसी का अलग रहता है. पहले तो रिसेप्शन ये रहता है कि यार तुम हो कौन यार, and you are nobody. I should not say. They look at you as if you are a piece of shit. Like you are. तुम हो गए Indian Army से, but yeah, by Parachute Regiment. That is the first attitude, right? Second is they really test you physically and mentally, whether it's your physical fitness, whether it's your mental toughness, then also in terms of your knowledge over weapons, over demolition, over other things like tactics. And third is, they are always saying, अगर आप कुछ अच्छा भी करते हो ना, जैसे आपने BPT 22 minutes में कर लिया, उस्ताद बोलेगा अरे ठीक है साहब, ये 22 minutes तो पैरा में चलता रहता है, तो 20 मिनट में करना चाहिए, 19 का उसका टाइम है, ठीक है. So it's a very second graded citizen kind of a treatment, right? कि यार ये है Parachute Regiment, आप हो Indian Army से, you are a second graded citizen. I'm sorry to say this, because I've seen both sides of the world. Then the other thing is, from day one, they put you into a lot of challenges. I landed at Agra. So there was a junior officer who was junior to me who came to receive me. He said, immediately strip off on the Agra station. They made me wear combats. And the first thing he told me that, Captain Vineet, I've heard you are very good at running. And you got instructor grading in commandos and other courses. So you start running from here only. मेरा सामान सारा जिप्सी में डाल दिया और वहीं मेरे को एक 10 किलोमीटर करा दिया और पूरा दिन मेरा भूत बना दिया. I landed like 11 o'clock and they left me at night 11 o'clock. So it was like that kind of a reception I got when I went to second.
Wonderful. It's so inspiring.
I was still very lucky because I had my own course mate Nirmit there who used to kind of tell me that, you are good, you will be selected. Otherwise, a lot of people don't even know that. तो वो एक cocoon में चले जाते हैं कि am I good? ये 6 महीने इतना रगड़ा खाने के बाद भी क्या पता ये मेरे को select ना करें. वो सब बहुत ही, अपने आप पे बहुत question marks आ जाते हैं उधर पे.
Then Vineet, how has been the journey? Means I think you remained 7 years into that, rather 5 years, 2 years in the infantry battalion, and thereafter 5 years
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this.
Almost I did about 6.5 years to 7 years.
6 years, yeah. So how was that? Any combat experience, or what was the journey like in the?
I mean, journey was very good. I mean, I was with Fire Assam. I was on the Chinese border near in high altitude area in Sikkim and all. It was mainly North Sikkim. Then I came down to Kapurthala, from where I joined Paras. So Paras में बहुत अच्छा experience रहा. Did some very good, airborne exercises with Russian paratroopers. It was known as a exercise Indra. Then did a lot of jumps, more than about 100 jumps I've done. And it's a very good feeling to get trained with the best, and at least being considered the best. Then I went to Kashmir also. I had a couple of innings with both the battalions, right? And there the experience was that time it was very intense. Now the valley has changed a lot. Us time pe 2002 to 2005 was very intense in valley. There were militants everywhere, and there were a lot of the threat was relatively really high. So of course, being an infantry officer, being a parachute regiment officer, there was a lot of combat experience I got. Went into a lot of operations and all. And there I realized that it's being in the parachute regiment physically is different. Being trained with the best is different, but combat is combat, where you really see that वो बड़ी पहाड़े, वो श्री कश्मीर की वो patrols, that that threat of different militant groups operating, that night ambushes, and other things, right? So it's pretty intense. And what I realized is that you need to have a lot of practical experience to be a good combat warrior. You might have trained a lot,
yes,
but जब तक आप operation पे operation करते नहीं हो अपने टीम के साथ, ग्रुप के साथ, जब तक कि आप 4-5 फायर फाइट्स में नहीं रहे हो, आपका वो एक सिक्स सेंस वर्क नहीं करता कि how should I manage that situation. And it's an intense situation, right? Because you are in a counter-insurgency kind of an environment, and the group there is very difficult to identify because they mix very well with the locals. They operate from very remote locations. I would also say हमारे time पे थोड़ा anti feeling भी था during our days, or there was a mixed reaction to, which has now changed a lot in Valley. So I really enjoyed the experience of working with both the battalions, being in being in Kashmir, experiencing all that at a very young age. And also it brings you very close to your men. You start respecting them कि ये जेसीओ साहब है, ये उस्ताद है, इसने मेरे से 2-3 ज्यादा टेन्योर काटे हैं कश्मीर में, तो he knows more than me. Don't try to boss around there or show your extra knowledge or josh on how things are to be done. So you learn a lot from everyone. Yeah,
certainly, because those are the experienced lot, and they got a lot of wisdom as far as ground experience is concerned. Yes, his experience always help in such a situation. So, Vineet, when did you decide that let me just do something else?
No, मेरा ऐसा कुछ decide नहीं था, बहुत हो गया, because I actually was super happy in army. I loved the whole ecosystem, the spirit of the battalion, my seniors, my batchmates, course mates, my juniors, the whole my men, the JCOs. So army was like a dream for me. I still feel it's a dream for me. Like I sometimes feel, really, did I serve, stayed 7 years and left? I really miss both my battalions, 7 Para and 5 Assam. Last month I went for Golden Jubilee of 5 Assam. Last month I also, went to Kashmir, stayed with 7 Para in Kupwara for about a week. I took my mother and all there. My mother and sister and my wife and my daughter there. Because when I was in the army, all 6.5, 7 years, right? my family never visited me. That means my mother, my sister, nobody came. And I got married when I was 32 after leaving the army. So I really, just last month, I went to both 5 Assam. I stayed there 1 week, attended my Golden Jubilee, went to 7 Para, spent a good 1 week with my unit officers, man, showed my family what the way of life was in army. They were really touched, meeting everyone. So for me, the reason to leave army was not बहुत हो गया. मेरे को तो actually बहुत नहीं हुआ था. Actually, I mean, a veteran like you has served so long. I think that line is really apt for you. मेरा तो ऐसा हो गया था कि in a para jump I got injured, where both my knees got operated and I got a ACL tear done, operations done. और हमारे टाइम पे ना इतना एडवांस टेक्निक्स नहीं थी जो नी रिप्लेसमेंट और ACL लिगमेंट टेयर की. तो एक बहुत ही बड़ा वूंड होता था. They used to cut big, and that operation used to not 100% heal you, and you used to become a permanent category. Now with over a period of 15 years, the technology has improved. They can do graft treatment and all. So I actually got injured in a para jump where I broke my knees and I got them operated. And slowly my knees got very deteriorated doing the same battalion stuff. Finally, I became a low medical category. I had to get an operation done, and I was a permanent low medical category. And then I had two options. One, para was never an option after that, because you have to be super fit to be in the Parachute Regiment, working with the special forces. So I was sidestepped by my unit as a ADC, staff officer to a general officer commanding. And there I had a lot of time to think about, I could have either moved to something like an administrative side like ordnance or ASC. I'm sure army would have definitely helped me to do that. But then I decided, I kind of thought I'm 27. I'm still young. Why don't I look at, moving out of army, doing something again outside. It took me a lot of courage to do that because as I told you, my parents were in the army. I joined army when I was 19 and a half. So at the age of 26, thinking about leaving army was a very, very difficult decision for me. So for me, leaving army was a more difficult decision than joining army. I was very scared leaving army. यार मैं छोड़ रहा हूँ तो पता नहीं बाहर मैं settle हो पाऊंगा कि नहीं. Whether the civil world would accept me. So I left army with. When I left army, I would say I was really low in confidence. I had a lot of question marks in front of me that whether I'll be able to survive outside or do anything. So that was the state in which I left army. Yeah.
Vineet, you mentioned about that having done training, some exercises with the Russian troops also, that parajumps and all. So, how was that experience? Means what exactly it was?
So it was a good experience. So the whole Russian airborne division had come to India.
Okay.
In 2004, I think so, and we did an exercise known as Exercise Indra, where actually we were working and hands on hands with the Russian airborne division, with the special forces, doing combined exercises. So the exercise was all about jumping out of the latest Russian aircrafts, doing combined operations. So the exercise happened in Mahajan field firing ranges in Rajasthan, where we did a full battalion level jump with them. Then we tried to understand how their special forces work, what is a small team concept for them, how they look at airborne, heliborne operations. And so it was a good 1 month exercise. I think so they were there for 1 month, where 1 week was in Agra, 1 week was in Mahajan field firing ranges, 1 week was I think so it was in Lakshadweep and Maldives Islands, and the other 1 week was where we went to Russia again, and we trained with their special forces in Moscow. I mean, so that was the whole exercise. So it was a great time. You know how the Russian airborne division and paratroopers are. It was all about physically they are very fit. So one thing I saw is that between our special forces and Russian special forces and American special forces, the definition of physical fitness is different. Our physical fitness definition is you should be able to run 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers, 120 kilometers in certain time with weight, right? Their definition of, of special forces or airborne forces is that, you should be able to walk for kilometers and kilometers with your, battle load. So, and second, their definition is very much into, they look at, para jumps, equipment, airborne operations at another level, right? Because their scale is different. So there's a lot to learn from them.
Yeah.
But as far as the small team concepts are concerned, where squad operation is concerned, like operating in a squad of 5, commando operations are concerned, of course, there was a lot for them to learn from us, because we are practically trained and hardened, right?
Yeah.
Because we have been trained, we are actually have been trained, and we have practically experienced that in the valley in Kashmir. So it was a great experience. I really enjoyed, aircraft flying everywhere, people jumping out of aircrafts, para jumps, free fallers, jumping into the deserts, the islands, understanding about your equipments. And at night, those parties, where Russian vodka was flowing day in and day out. Even at morning, sometimes, the aircraft used to smell of Russian vodka, because the parties used to end at 3 o'clock and the jumps used to start at morning 7, 8. So wonderful 1 month spent with them. Yeah.
Vineet, when you talk about that paradropping, of course, officers and men, they jump out of aircraft for the parajump. But you throw the equipment also in that include even the tanks. So how that is done? How the tank dropping is done?
Yeah.
I have not seen it.
Right. So a lot of people, they have a very different impression about para jumps. They think what they see in TV, right? That a person is jumping out of a parachute, free falling, and then opening a parachute and nicely landing at a place on a beach is what is, that is what we call as adventure jumping or fun jumping. So jumping in Indian Army, or jumping out of a plane, or parachuting in Indian Army, or any kind of special forces of the world is very different. One is all the jumps happen at pitch dark night. That means it's not a day jump. You're being trained to invade a enemy territory at pitch dark nights, right? That is one. Second is, you jump out of an aircraft with a lot of equipment. You have your rucksack with you, battle load, 24 kilos. You have your ammunition with you. You have your weapon with you. So after you jump out of an aircraft, there are various techniques. First, you open your parachute. After opening your parachute, once it's stable, you release your load, which is your rucksack. You can't jump with a rucksack on your shoulders. You only keep your weapon, right? And at night, you have to practice that. You have to be very careful that when the rucksack hits the ground, that is where you come to know that the ground is coming now. Mm-hmm. And then you have to practice to make para positions, land. During landing, you can have several injuries, which I had. That is one. Second is, within parachute also, there are static line jumps, like what I explained. And then there is combat free fall. Combat free fall means you jump out of 25,000 feet with an oxygen cylinder. And within that, there are two kinds of jumps. HAHO, high altitude, high opening. That means you open your parachute at 15,000, 16,000, and you navigate into a different, territory, so that the enemy doesn't know after you opened your parachute, where have you gone? It's again a small team concept, right? Like securing a drop zone, securing a bridge head. That's what that's what you do in HAHO, high altitude, high opening, where you don't want, because the enemy will come to know that an aircraft has come in. Enemy will come to know this is where you exited. But after you open your parachute, you can navigate in and around 7 kilometers. You don't want them to know the exact location. Then there is HALO, high altitude, low opening. They jump from 25,000 feet or above, or 20,000 feet and above, and you open your parachute 2,000, 3,000 and immediately inject into the enemy territory. And the third is a complete airborne operation, where you are using multiple aircrafts. You are entering into enemy territory. You are doing various kinds of jump, creating a confusion or creating a threat behind enemy lines, in which you actually form up an organization or a battalion behind enemy lines at a company level or at a battalion level, and you attack from behind, right? In that, you also need a lot of equipment. So as 7 Para SF Airborne Special Forces, you practice not only jumping as a human being, you also drop your gypsies. That time you had gypsies. Gypsies have a different parachute system, which we call as heavy drop system. So the gypsy has got like 7 to 8 parachutes, which it brings the gypsy down. You eject the parachute, you get the gypsy operational, and then you are on your gypsy. It can be a ATGM gypsy, like anti-tank guided missile gypsy. It can be a gypsy. So second is you also drop something known as tanks, which are BMPs. So there you have 17 parachutes. It's known again. It's got a different heavy drop system, and the tanks are dropped so that you can maneuver behind enemy lines. So this is like an entire company level or a battalion level airborne operation, which you mainly do to drop deep into enemy territory and attack the enemy from behind, create a lot of confusion where enemy is seeing that there is a frontal attack also, there is an attack from behind also, and mainly capturing some key strategic points like bridgeheads on the canals, the DCPs. There are bridges, right? There are crossing points. You need to capture the bridgeheads so that you can provide support to the armored division, infantry divisions who can cross over. Second, capturing and destroying certain strategic points like fuel ammunition dumps or tank locations, maybe the airport, destroying the airport so that the enemy air force cannot be airborne while the main attack is going on. So that's where you practice various kinds of jumps at an organization level, and that's one of the key responsibilities of the Parachute Regiment and the Parachute Battalion, which a lot of people don't know that is what you're being trained for. Yeah.
So this dropping of whether gypsy or the tank, it's with a single parachute only? Those kind of parachutes?
As I mentioned to you, it's not a heavy drop equipment system.
Okay.
So the gypsy has got a different heavy drop system. So it's got a heavy drop platform. On the platform, there's a way that platform is built which can take the impact of that drop. So the gypsy is on that platform. Okay. So immediately you remove the platform, you exit the parachutes, and the gypsy is on its own. That means you can start driving the gypsy. Similarly, I still remember the tank or the BMP is dropped with 17 parachutes, and that too the size of the parachutes is very different. It's not like the human parachute descent system. Yeah. And there are courses for this. Okay. Like if you want to jump as an individual, you have a course known as parachute descent course. We call it as, which happens in paratrooper school. Then there is a course known as combat free fall course. If you want to be a free faller, like you do halo jumps, right? Then there is a course known as parachute heavy dropping system course, where you qualify on how to drop equipment like gypsies, tanks, even artillery guns are dropped. So the artillery, reassembles from behind enemy line and starts firing on key enemy positions. So it's Parachute Regiment is created and is trained and dropped behind enemy lines to create maximum havoc, maximum confusion, and capture a lot of strategic positions or destroy them, which will in turn help your main inland forces like armored divisions and infantry divisions who are doing a frontal attack. Yeah.
Yeah, basically the vital installations.
Right.
So do we have all these training all these three kind of training?
Yeah, of course. Trainings trainings are of an extremely high level in Indian Army. Indian Army is one of the most professional army. So you are trained, and especially in special forces, that's what people look at, special forces in a very different way. Provision is tough. 120 kilometer bhagna hai. Arey, wo to karna hi karna hai. But the other thing is that you need to be so skilled, whether it's, how to manage your weapon system. Like normal Indian Army has the INSAS rifle, right? Parachute Regiment at my time used to have the AK series and the Uzi. Now you have a different weapon system, which is known as Tower, right? So you need to be also trained on your weapon system. You need to be trained on navigation. The equipment is specialized, like night vision equipment. Then third comes the whole parachute dropping equipment. Yeah.
Of course. Vineet, during this course of your service, I believe you were awarded twice the commendation card in the Western Command and Northern Command.
Right,
So,
right.
what were those occasions? Means, what were those?
I mean, so as far as awards are concerned, I'm slightly not that decorated. Yeah, the Northern Command was, we were in an operation. It was a militant operation where, you know, we had done an ambush, and I had my senior, he got a Sena medal, I got a commendation card. And the Western Command one was basically, there was an exercise in which you know, I had done uh, a complete project on how an infantry battalion can have tank hunting teams. We used to call it you know, THTs. So how an infantry battalion can set up various tank hunting teams and use the ATGM equipment, anti-tank guided missile equipment, to destroy, you know, enemy tanks, armored division tanks. So for that whole conceptualization of the THT, tank hunting teams, how to use the ATGM equipment, how to maneuver across, you know, the DCB, what you call as ditch come band, right?
Yeah,
which is the border between India and Pakistan. So I had conceptualized, I had presented this to the Army commander, where he was very impressed that, okay, yeah, as a captain, you're thinking on these lines, and he gave me a commendation card. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's the beauty of Army.
Right.
So, Vineet, you know, Army teaches you a lot. But one statement which you made is very true. When you transition from Army to the civil environment, and that is from a secure life to an unsecure life, it is something like you have been thrown into the sea and you don't know swimming. So how that transition you carried out and then established yourself?
Right.
In addition, how this learning of armed forces helped you to grow phenomenally?
Oh, it helps you a lot in a very tacit way, in an unknowing way. The Army really helps you to do, I'll not say do a transition, but to excel in your career in the civil street. So let's say all my batchmates, right, who or my course mates who left the Army, I'm very proud to say this, especially all the officers from SS74 are either sales heads in some companies, or they are security heads, or they are HR heads. And a lot of us have been successful abroad. Like Nirmit, again, my batchmate, whom we were talking, or my course mate, is the security head of, you know, VP, right?
I know.
And all my batchmates are doing extremely well. They are earning very well. They must be earning somewhere above 60 lakhs to at least, you know, 1.3, 1.4 crores in terms of packages. So one is definitely Army helps you to groom you at a mental level, at a, you know, professional level, that you're doing well outside, right? That's why all my course mates are doing so well. Second is, you know, the transition is very tough, because in Army, your worry is about, at least in the special forces, you're very insecure about life. You're always, I mean, there is a threat of life, right? You're operating in Kashmir, you're doing dangerous operations, so your life might be a threat, but you're never in threat of your daily bread.
Yes.
So the civil street is a different street where you know, यार life पे कुछ नहीं होगा, मैं जिंदा ही हूँ, but यार अगले महीने salary मिलेगी कि नहीं? Because Army में, the Indian government, the Army really takes care of you. They give you food, they give you shelter, they give you a salary. But here in the civil world, nobody gives you food, nobody gives you shelter, nobody gives you salary until unless you prove it, and you earn it, you know, by working morning 9 to evening 7, or even 9 to 9, depending on the work hours you have. So for me, the transition was very difficult, because one was I had never lived in the civil world, and things also went wrong for me. I wanted to become a HR manager in a nice big company, take my tiffin box every day morning at 8:30, clock in my time, work under some, you know, senior manager or vice president, take his directions nicely, and complete my work. And 9 o'clock, I mean evening 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, come back home, spend some time with my mother, and relax on weekends. That was my definition of joining a corporate world, right? And I got into a very big company, Tech Mahindra, that time Satyam Computers, and I got a very nice job. But what happened, from I was hired as a HR manager. Suddenly they told me that the business unit for which we hired you has dissolved. It's no more there. So I was like, यार ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है यार कि तुमने वो business unit ही dissolve कर दिया जिसके लिए तुमने मेरे को hire किया. Then they told me that there is only one role, which is like a sales role. So you have to do a sales and marketing role. So you have to do sales and marketing. And I was like, यार मैं तो सामान भी CSD से खरीदता हूँ, मेरे को कुछ नहीं पता ये sales and marketing क्या होता है. Then they told me, if this is not the role, then we don't have any role for you. And 2008 में बहुत ज़्यादा recession आ रखा था, sir, if you remember. Job market was very bad. तो मैंने बहुत try किया कि मेरे को कोई HR manager की job दे, पर किसी company से भी मेरे को offer नहीं आया. So then I was forced to take the sales and marketing role, but that was a game changer for me. So I used to work with the chief marketing officer and chief strategy officer of Satyam Computers. Directly, I had I started seeing various leaders who were top marketing leaders, top sales leaders. I started seeing how a sales engine, how a marketing engine works, the exposure with them, right? Traveling abroad, whether it was, Singapore, all these countries, going to UK. So the first 2 years of leaving the army, right, I got an exposure of an extremely high level, which I was lucky. Then second was, then I joined a startup because the Satyam Computers ka tab downfall hua tha. If you remember, ek stock fraud agra ho gaya tha, because of which I lost my job. That was again an eye opener for me कि ऐसा भी हो सकता है. Like a company which is like $1 billion company has become bankrupt within 2 weeks, and they are saying now you don't have a job. So then I left my job. Then I started looking for jobs outside. Again, as luck would have it, nobody wanted to give me a job in sales and marketing, because they said, यार तेरा sales and marketing का experience तो 18 महीने का है, और तेरा आर्मी एक्सपीरियंस 6.5 साल का है, और तू JNK में एके वेके लेके घूम रहा था मिल्टन के पीछे, उसका सेल्स से क्या लेना देना है. और यहाँ पे you were doing very high end work, right? You were with the chief marketing officer, chief strategy. उतना high end work पे तो we hire very experienced guys. So luckily then I got into a startup. That startup did very well, and I went to Latin America. I stayed in Brazil about 2.5 years, traveled a lot, traveled to North America, Europe and all. That gave me again a lot of confidence, a lot of exposure. Came back to India, I did my own startup, which was known as Creative Pixels, which got acquired by Sterling Group. Again, I was independently operating. Then I came to Thailand in 2014, did again another startup with a known investor. And 3 years, that did not do well. In 3 years, we could not scale it at another level. Then in 2018, I started working with Disprz as a consultant. I think there I really enjoyed working with both the co-founders. There is a gentleman known as Subbu. He's like after army, if I really like and respect and admire somebody, it's Subbu, the present co-founder of Disprz. And then there is Kuljit, who is again, who really gives me a lot of freedom to, operate, freedom to decide, freedom to learn, freedom to fail. So I think so with Disprz, I had I felt as if it's my own, I'm back at home, right? And it became like a passion that I need to grow this into 4 or 5 countries. I started working with Disprz. Then the other startups also, there are a couple of startups whom I saw really growing. I also, help them sometimes, not in like permanent capacity. So this is my experience of outside. Again, it's not been an easy 9 to 6 job, where I can tell you very confidently that from 2009, after I left Satyam, till 2018, at least 10 years, I never knew whether my next salary is going to come. So I never knew that next month, if my on paper my salary is 2 lakhs, will I get that 2 lakhs? कभी ऐसा हुआ कि 2-3 महीने salary आई नहीं. कभी ऐसा हुआ कि 6 months I was without a salary because my company was not doing well. We were waiting for funding. And then eventually, but luckily I had some good people to work with, as I was mentioning, my present startup, where I feel very much at home in the, and I feel that the reason why I survived in the corporate world was again the freedom to operate, freedom to decide, the flexibility to learn, unlearn, do mistakes, which very much resonates to the ethos of the Parachute Regiment of Special Forces, where you are operating in small team concepts. You're doing something from zero. You're in totally unknown territory. So it's my life has been like that, doing a business from zero in unknown territories like, Brazil, Chile, Argentina, now here Indonesia, Philippines. So I think I gathered a lot of my strength, mental strength, but there is a lot to learn. I must say that we in Army should not take the world for granted outside. I'm still learning. There is so much to learn every day. I look at my own company, which is growing at such a fast level. Various people joining from very established premium institutions. I keep observing them. I keep learning them. Someday, maybe I'll also get to implement all of this in my own startup whenever I start again. So it's a continuous learning curve, and
Absolutely.
I don't take it for granted. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a continuous learning. Life itself is a learning process.
Yes.
In fact, Vineet, you had even the passion for biking also. Tell something about this viewers. They will be pretty happy that you are so fond of that. You are holding 4 to 5 bikes of high-end bikes right now.
I'm a very passionate person. Whatever I do with a lot of passion. So I got very passionate into motorbikes at the age of 17. So my father bought me my first motorcycle, which was a Hero Honda Splendor 100cc. That was a very popular bike that time. And then I used to always steal my mother's kinetic Honda keys when I was in the 7th and the 8th grade. And whenever my mom was on night duty somewhere in the army hospital and her kinetic Honda was available to me, I used to somehow manage to get some money. That time petrol was, I remember, 21 rupees a liter. And at 8th or 9th class, I used to steal her keys and take out the kinetic Honda and drive. So I think from beginning, I was very passionate about two wheels, motorcycles. And I continued with that passion. In my graduation days, I had a Hero Honda Splendor. I sold that, then bought a Yamaha RX 135, which was a very powerful bike. Then, of course, money was always a constraint. Then when I moved to Army, I bought multiple Enfields. I started with a very second-hand Enfield, which was 350cc. Then I bought a new Enfield, which was 350cc. Then my third bike was a 500cc Enfield. So I always was looking for more power, more engine capacity, more more speed, but couldn't ever afford a imported bike or a 1000cc bike. Then when I actually went to I left Satyam, right, the first time I worked with my startup. There I made some money, my first 5-6 lakhs, and I bought my first bike, which was a Honda 1000cc Rapsol.
Oh.
I used to drive it a lot. I used to really enjoy that. And then, so that was like my first 1000cc bike. It was known as Rapsol CBR 1000. Then in 2011, I bought my first Hayabusa. So I bought a Hayabusa. Then I bought an Intruder, which was a 1800cc bike. So I kept on buying bikes. So bikes have been a part of my life. Right now, if you see, I have one of the most expensive bikes in the world. It is known as MV Agusta. So it's an Italian brand. So not many people know about this bike because it's like the Lamborghini of bikes, like how Lamborghini is to cars. So I have an MV Agusta 1000 F4, which is like the most expensive bike. Then I have a Ducati Panigale Corsa, which is one of the most good-looking bikes in the world. Then I have a bike which is known as Honda Goldwing. It's like a big bike, 1800cc, 6 cylinders. Then I have a bike which is known as Ninja 14R, 1450cc. It is one of the most powerful bikes in the world. So I continue to ride whenever I'm back in Bangkok, and if my wife gives me the permission and time, I do go on a bike ride. And sometimes I do more than 1000 kilometers on a weekend. Sometimes even 500 kilometers, sometimes just a 200 kilometers is also enough. I try to manage between my work, time for my wife and my daughter, and my bikes. Yeah, that's what my life is.
viewers, you can hear it. अभी आपको समझना चाहिए कि बाइक के बारे में पूछना है और खरीदना है या पैशन के बारे में तो whom to contact. That is a great, Vineet, means it's a unique or I must say quite a wonderful passion, and though expensive too, means it's difficult to afford.
Very expensive to afford. At times it has happened that I've sold my apartment and I have bought a bike. So I'm so passionate about it.
My God.
My family was crazy. Like, who sells an apartment and buys a bike?
That is crazy. That is crazy. Vineet, finally, in fact, you have seen the both part of the life. You have seen the corporate and you have seen the army, and that too in the para. So what would you like to tell about the viewers, those who wish to join army and then become a para? Because there's a lot of craze among the young lot about the para. Or firstly, they have to become army officer, then para, of course. And then those who are about to transition from the secure life of army to the civil world, in the both cases, what would you like to give a few suggestions?
So my suggestion is that I'll split this question into three.
Yes. Yeah.
One is, if you want to join army, it's not a job, it's a way of life.
Yeah.
So if you are joining army thinking that I want to enjoy life, I want to have a good salary, I want to wear a nice uniform, have a lot of parties in the officers' mess. Of course, sir, I know that army is not about that. It's a very tough career option. It's a way of life. You will be tested in the toughest places at the toughest times. And second is, once you get into army, there is no U-turn. Outside, you can say, okay, I don't like this company, I'll work for a different company and all. So that's my, that's the first suggestion I have. So if you're joining army, please understand that it's not a job. It's a passion for life, and it's you are there for a cause, right? Second is your question on Parachute Regiment joining the Special Forces. I would only say that look at Parachute Regiment in a very different way. It is a place where only the toughest and the toughest of the toughest can survive. It's a place where mentally and physically you have to be at your peak for a long time of your career. That means in army or infantry, maybe after 5-6 years, you can relax. You don't need to be physically fit. But in Parachute Regiment, let's say till 15 years, you need to walk with your men, do special forces operations. And if you are joining para just for the maroon beret and the uniform, that's a good thought. But do understand what Parachute Regiment is, what provision is, and clearing the provision is still easy. After you clear the provision, the ownership and the responsibility on you as a Parachute Regiment officer, as a paratrooper, when you undergo special forces operations, is of an intense nature, involving a lot of life threat, involving difficult training, and it's not for a short period of time. So think about it, whether this is meant for you. I'm not saying it doesn't join Parachute Regiment, Special Forces, you're not good for army, you're not a good army officer. All the Indian Army is an elite. All battalions are good, but you need to understand whether you want to go that extra young. Some people don't want to. So you should be very matured in your decision for opting for paras, clearing the provision, and then staying there and serving there. It's not very easy. The last thing is about transition into the civil world. I think that's one of the most difficult things, which a lot of us underestimate. So one thing I want to say is that how many ever years you have done in army, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, maybe 30 years, you retire as a general, the outside world is very different. So you need to first, remove your ranks in the outside world, look at it from a new lens or a perspective, a lens and perspective of, profitability, a lens and perspective of, operational efficiency, and a lens and perspective of, flexibility. You need to be very flexible. Working outside, flexible in terms of doing all kinds of roles. You can't say, my role is this, my rank is this, I'll not do this, right? Outside, you might have to do that extra yard. And second, and while you are doing this transition, I always advise you that work with a big company for at least 2 to 3 years, so that you understand how various parts of a elephant, whether it's, sales, marketing, operations, security, HR, and other kind of, departments, legal. So you really understand how a private company or a public company works, where there are, more than at least, 5,000 odd employees. And then, then enter into a stage. I'll just plug my laptop also, and then enter into a stage where, you want to, do, or you want to work for a startup, or you want to do your own startup. I'm sure, sir, you have also worked for big companies, and now finally you've decided that you want to do something of your own. Understand, how the startups are. It's not a piece of cake to work in a startup or do something of your own. So it's always advisable to, work with a big company 2 years, 4 years, and then join a startup or do something of your own. And I would say that the transition has to be more aligned to Army. Like, I feel that, if you are in a sales and marketing role, like initially when I joined Satyam Computers, right, people had great difficulty in accepting me, that you're an Army guy. How can you do sales? How can you do marketing? They used to look at me, okay, you are there for operational or administrative work, but not the niche marketing work. So you face a lot of, if you want to do something new and in the mainstream, be ready that people will question that how can you as an Army officer do it? So you need to sharpen your skills faster. And if you are entering into something like, HR, which are not tech HR roles like compensation and benefits and all, but generic roles, then it's much easier for you. If you are in security and information security, then it's much more easier for you. So decide what you want to do, but the transition will be difficult. It'll not be easy. Yeah.
So true. In fact, what you have given, that some pointers is very important for the viewers, and I'm sure they must benefit from this learning, because you have gone through the entire chain of transitions from a civil, being a young boy, to become an army officer to the para officer, and para officer to the civil officer, and thereafter entrepreneur or everything. So wonderful, Vineet, and such a, let me tell you, such a insightful conversation for me as well as my viewers. And I must really thank you from bottom of my heart on behalf of me and my viewers. And thank you so much for giving so much of wonderful insight.
No worries, sir. Thanks a lot. I really enjoyed our discussion, our conversation. And happy to connect with a senior and veteran like you. I wish you all the best, sir, for this great venture you have started. And it's a very inspiring one. We are finally thinking of giving back to the organization, which has given so much to you, so much to me. And we really admire you for that. I wish you all the best. And I look forward to hosting you whenever you are this side of the world, in Thailand and Bangkok. And I look forward to also meeting you when I am in Delhi or whenever I come to India. Please, please do stay in touch, and we should continue on this association which we have built. Yeah.
Yes.